Well, hello everyone. It's the first week of November, and that means it's time for the November Q&A video. At least it means that whenever I remember to do it, and I did remember this time, so here's the Q&A video. I've got some few great questions, so I'll go ahead and answer the questions that y'all have asked over the last month for this video. Quick note, I'm shooting inside with a pretty boring background, just the inside of the van and my wind-tattered curtains. I'm staying in a state park campground right now. It's not bad as far as campgrounds go, but it's definitely noisy enough and enough traffic and things outside, and just enough wind today too, that it will be difficult to get a decent video outside. So hopefully by the next video, Monday, hopefully I'll be back somewhere where I can have a better backdrop for you outdoors, a little more quiet environment to shoot in. And I've also got planes and helicopters going overhead here. We're right close to an airport, so it goes with the territory. I want to kick off. You got a pair of questions here that are similar topics. Mark asks what camera and photo tips, and John asks details on the camera you use, software, how to get it on YouTube, what shoots well, etc. Basically, I'll give you a partial answer to this right now today, and the reason for that is I've had a lot of questions over, let's say, the last few months, probably at least, on cameras and photography and videography and getting things on YouTube and software and that sort of stuff. I've been hesitant to do too much with it because I've been doing this for a while professionally, but I gauge myself not against where I came from when I didn't know anything, but against where I want to be professionally and skill-wise. And so the people I gauge myself against are definitely better than me still. So I've been reluctant to do too much on explaining things about photo and video for that reason. But I think at the same time, I think there is a shortage of good, concise, getting started resources online. Meaning you can find plenty of random articles, and you can find sites that have some introductory and some advanced, but it'd be hard if you're getting started to go through and get through the basics step by step without having to pay money to get it. It seems like those courses are subscription or paid. So what I'm going to do anyways, based on the frequent questions I get and what seems to be a limited availability of material in this niche, I'm planning a series over the winter on exactly this. I'll go over what cameras I use, how I do what I do, what software I use, getting on YouTube, all that sort of stuff, audio, and I'm planning over the winter because my traveling, I'm going to be slowing down on my traveling. It's actually slowed a little bit now. And then I'm going to basically be not doing too much traveling over the winter. So that'll provide me a good time to, I think, to work on that project. Hopefully free up some time that I'm not traveling. So that's what I plan with that. So hang in for that. Meanwhile, as far as what camera and stuff, I started off with just my iPhone. If you got a reasonably modern iPhone, like 5S onward, or any of the recent decent Androids, you probably can get pretty decent video just out of your smartphone. You get into some of the cheaper phones, they're just not going to have great cameras. And if you get into some of the older ones, again, the technology's evolved a lot in recent years, so you're not going to get the same results out of older phones. If you got anything that's a decent quality, any of the flagship phones from the last few years are probably going to give you decent video and photo. Some are better than others, but you can probably get some decent video with them. It's a great way to get started because you've already got the phone and it's with you, and so it's good. It's just easy to get going with it. There are a few limitations with using a smartphone. One is, the lack of a zoom or a real zoom. They'll have a digital zoom that is just, you don't want to use because it they don't have an optical zoom, and and they usually struggle in low light because of the small sensor size, and you do have to use, you do have to use external mics with them. The internal mic that's on the bottom for talking on is fine when you're talking because, you know, you got it like this, but you know, when you're trying to record and it's held out at a distance from you, even if you're shouting, it's not going to pick it up very well, and you're going to have trouble with the audio. So you really do need to get an external microphone to go with it. I have one for mine. I still have the 3.5 jack because this is a 6S Plus, and it just plugs in here and it articulates so I can turn it whichever way I need it, and it works fairly well. If you have like an iPhone 7, it doesn't have a headphone jack anymore. You have to get one that'll go in the lightning port, and if you're on Android, you'll have to, you know, depend on what your what your system is, what you got there. But you can get mics to go with them, and that will make a big difference. After that, I upgraded to a Canon camcorder, small camcorder. That was, yeah, you know, sometimes the iPhone was just as good as that in video, but it was a little better. The Canon camcorder is better in lower light, and it had an optical zoom on it and some other features that were nice. Plus, it's just a dedicated camera, so that was good. Since then, I've also got a GoPro. Mine's a Hero 3 Black. It's older, a few generations old. It gave me a chance to try it out and see if it was even something I would use. Mostly, I use it for the dash cam. But sometimes other stuff too. You know, so I may eventually upgrade to a newer one. And I also have, what I'm recording this on, is a Canon EOS Rebel SL1 digital SLR. That's my mainstay camera these days. The nice thing with the SL1 is that it is an SLR, but it's also very compact and very light, which when you do a lot of hiking or traveling, just traveling about and stuff, that's a really nice option. So that's what I'm recording this on. But those are basically my cameras, and I got links to all them in the description if you want to see more about them or anything. But that's that. And like I said, over the winter I'll be doing a whole series. I'm going to put together a whole series on it'll be like one video a week on different things about what I do with a camera and video and editing and all the rest. And I hopefully that'll you know, it'll only be one video a week, so if you don't want to watch it, you can skip over it. But if you're interested, it'll give you hopefully some helpful information if you're getting started with photography or with video. Okay, so the next question is again from Mark. He snuck in 2 this month. I never seem to see any pop-up tents or shelters. I would think that might make a nice break from the confines of the van, yet few nomads seem to use them. We have an REI alcove and don't use it often, but if one place for a while it's nice. So too much weight or bulk, too much trouble, not durable enough for full-time. What are your thoughts? You know, in concept, I think they're great. As an observation, yeah, I don't see a lot of nomads using them. Sometimes, sure, there's people do, but not as much as you might expect. And yeah, I think basically it boils down to 2 things. The first is the size and weight, especially size, but size and weight. That if you're in a minivan, for example, you know, it's just hard. My space is limited enough that it would be hard for me to figure out how to. I do actually have a small compact backpacking tent that's stuffed under the bed that I don't use too often, but it's there. But a larger shelter would definitely take up more space. I could probably find the room if I needed to, if I felt like I get enough value out of it, but something else might have to go. And then there's the other issue. I think what I think, and for me is the big issue, is wind. Now, if you're mostly in the forest, the national forest, something, not an issue. And if I was mostly in the national forest, I would definitely have like a pop-up, like a screen room or something, screen shelter. I would definitely do that. With a canopy on the top, you know, so that it would keep the rain off when it rained. That would absolutely be valuable enough to be worth the bulk and the weight in the van. Catch is, I spend a lot of time in the plains and I spend a lot of time in the desert. And in those places, the wind is so bad that, you know, it's a problem. It would either shred them or bend the poles, or at least I would be worried it would do that even if it didn't actually do it. The wind is just brutal. So you get these 50 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour winds come through, which is not uncommon. You know, even if you got stuff staked down, you're probably going to end up crashing it. So that would be my concern with them, and I think that's based on conversations I've had with people. That seems to be the biggest reason people shy away from them is just the wind. If you're spending time in the desert and the plains, if you're just in the forests, it's less of an issue, and they're a lot more valuable. I did have a pop-up shower tent for a while, and exactly that happened to it. It got shredded. It got destroyed in the wind. It's just, it's one of those things like washing your car and it rains. It's like you put up a tent or something and the wind blows. It just seems to go hand in hand. So I think, in my experience, that's it. It is a concern with space, but I think the bigger concern is, at least in my experience, is wind. I would make room for it. Space is an issue, but I would make room if it wasn't for the fact that I spend more than half my year in places where the wind is blowing like crazy. Okay, Pamela asks, do you all ever travel the Southeast? I have not been to the Southeast in many years, like since I was a teenager, and it is actually on my list to get back to the Southeast again and explore a little more. I actually thought about doing it this year. My travel plans ended up getting revised, but I thought I have family in upstate New York. I ended up going out in July is the issue. So I was thinking maybe when I left Wyoming in September, I'd work my way out to upstate New York and Massachusetts for October, where I have family. The weather would be nice, and then work my way down the coast, go through the Southeast and across, and visit son in Texas, and then, on to Arizona. Those plans ended up getting shook around, and I ended up doing Colorado and Utah instead, which was also great, just different. So the Southeast is on my list to check out. In terms of like doing it every year, at this point I don't see that happening, just because there's like so much free camping out here that it just makes life easier. But yeah, I definitely would like to get out there and explore the Southeast some more. So hopefully, maybe next year that'll happen. Okay, Gail asks, how do you set up an office space in your minivan? I have identical TNC minivan, and there are no flat surfaces inside, no room to have laptop on lap and front seats, not much space between seats, can't see screen with sun shining through front window, wound up every night at McDonald's for a booth and free Wi-Fi. Can you work in your van? Excellent question, and that is basically one of two beefs that frustrate me with the minivan. One is I'd like a little more ground clearance. Traction's great, as those of you saw who I made it up Hurrah Pass in this thing. The traction's great. I'd like a little more ground clearance. Second issue is it's just a little bit small inside for trying to have an office in, because I work on a computer all day long. I often say if you use it as a bedroom, it's perfect. If you're trying to use it as a bedroom and storage and kitchen and office and etc., it starts getting just a little bit small. And that's not necessarily minivans in general, just this particular model I find to be a little small. Some of the minivans are a little bit bigger and give you just a little more space. They might make that easier. Right now, what I've been doing is sitting in the front seat, using that as my office space, and then I use the dashboard and the driver's seat as basically storage in the office to put stuff around while I'm working. It's not ideal. I have tried to figure out how to do it in the back, and I just don't know. I can't figure it out other than giving up other stuff like a bed. So I'm not sure. I have one idea I may try still, and I will absolutely be sure to update this if it works. And it pretty much involves bringing a fold-up desk off the wall opposite for me so that I can use it while I'm sitting here. But then I have to put pillows behind me or something to have a backrest because, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll work or not, but it's one idea. The other thing I'm thinking about doing is turning around the passenger seat, if I can do it. I haven't got under there to look at it closely enough to be sure the bolts will line up if I turn it around. And I can't find a swivel disc, and I don't think it would work anyways because the clearances are so tight. So that might help as far as space and stuff, but then I don't know still as far as a good workspace. I'm still not sure about that. So that's one thing that makes me think I might go with a larger vehicle next time, be able to stand up and have a proper workspace. I had a friend who's a digital nomad, and we were camped together up in Utah for a bit, and I met him over in Colorado this fall, actually. Then we were again in Utah, and I got a tour of his, he's got a Class C, and I got a tour of it when we were up there, and oh my goodness, he's got, you know, he pulled out a bed, the one of the dinette seats and put in a couch, and he's got a table, you know, the dinette table he put on a slider, and he does his work there. So he can set up his laptop and his camera and all that stuff, and he's got an extra monitor on the wall, and oh man, I was like, you talk about envy right there, you know. I was like, boy, that would make work so much easier. So yeah, setting up an office in here is a challenge. I just haven't found a good way to do it with having a bed and some storage for kitchen stuff and what have you. What I keep going back to is, you know, there's too many things I want to do in here. I want to be able to sleep in here and store my things in here and cook in here and work in here, and of course then the basic you know, personal needs in here. And so that's about 5 things, and I think it's about 2 things too many for the space I've got. So if I'm going to make some tweaks this fall. I'm probably within a few weeks I'll be working on that, and I will definitely post an update on how well it works out. But as of this point, you know, I'm just using the front seat, and it's not ideal, but it's how I get by for now. All right, and leading into that, Janice asks, will your next van be something larger, like a full-size industrial van? Most van dwellers speak about the gas mileage, but it seems you don't travel very far on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, that's... There's always this balancing act, and I've got this, I keep kicking around different ideas in my head. One idea that definitely I am considering is to go larger, like potentially even a Class C or a school bus, short school bus, because I just would love to have the room to stand up and walk around and to be able to put in an office, which would improve my productivity, would help offset the costs of a larger vehicle. There's also like, for example, I've been out on some great 4-wheel drive trips with a friend this fall, so it's tempting to get a 4-wheel drive too. Yeah, I don't see the bigger and 4-wheel drive probably going together in my immediate experience. But you know, and I also appreciate the gas mileage of the smaller vehicles. So, but there's a good chance that yes, my next one will be a little bigger. And you're right, I do a lot of traveling. I get to go a lot of places, but from January, 1st of January of this year, I'm only at like 10,000 miles, which might be surprising if you follow all the travel. But what I do is, when I do these trips, like if I'm going from, you know, Arizona to Wyoming, I kind of pick a line, and so I do some exploring, but I keep it along that line as much as possible. And then when I get there, you know, I made a few trips over to the mountains, but not a lot. And so for the most part, I try to stay put and not waste a lot of gas and a lot of miles in the van. So yeah, I'm in November, and I'm only at 10,000 for the year. So, you know, I'm you know, at that range, yeah, it probably is not the end of the world to get something with a little worse gas mileage, but that gives me more comfort and space. So that's something I'll be looking at possibly this winter. Making a change one way or the other, whether I decide to go larger or to 4-wheel drive or whatever it is I end up with. I'll figure that out. So, but anyways, thanks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Got your questions answered. If you have questions for me, you know, either leave them in the comments on this video, or you know, you can email them to me. My email address is in the description. You can also watch on my public Facebook page, Wandering Minimalist. You'll see, hopefully a week ahead of time. I think I was only about 3 days ahead again this time, but hopefully I'll put up a notice and remind everybody the Q&A video is coming up and give you a chance to submit your questions. And hopefully next video is outside of the van, something a little more scenic background. I think it will be, so hang in there for that. All right, thanks everybody.